Hello listeners, this is Charlotte for Easy Listening. We are on Chapter 3 of the Hedgewitch, the awful anniversary. The story of Cassie's humiliation passed through the school faster than the head lice. Cassie had, for one day, at least, replaced Jane Wren as the most talked about girl in the school. All her efforts to become invisible were in vain. She felt as though someone had pulled off her armour, leaving her exposed and vulnerable once more. The hockey team were thrilled with this new opportunity to taunt Cassie. "Seen any pixies lately, Morgan?" they sneered as she passed them in the corridor. They crept up behind her at meals to whisper, "Hey Morgan, I think there's a unicorn under my bed. Want to check?" When she tried to escape, Lizzie Bleacher shouted after her, "Where you going, Morgan? The elves are that way." Word had obviously spread amongst the teachers too, and they seemed to be keeping an especially close eye on Cassie, which made her nervous about her clandestine reading. At night, Cassie had confused the troubling dreams about black knights chasing her with hockey sticks, and Mr. Hastings dressed as the Fairy Queen, wielding his cane in place of a wand. On Monday morning, Cassie woke with a sick feeling in her stomach. That was the usual effect of fowl house dinners, but today felt different. She lay in bed staring at the grey ceiling and the weak wash of light that crept in through the dormitory window, striped by iron bars. 5 other girls she shared the room with were still asleep. Beatrice Hartree was snoring. It was not Beatrice who had woken Cassie, however. It was the strange and sudden sensation that something was wrong. Cassie felt as though she'd gone to take a step from sleep to waking, and found the step missing, throwing her into the day with a sickening lurch. Of course, Cassie had detention that evening, but there was something else. She lay there and waited for her memory to stir. There were no exams yet. Term had only just started. She had no overdue prep, and games day wasn't until June. Cassie sat up and peered at the wall calendar, which showed a drooping daffodil. It was April 30th, the anniversary of her arrival at Fowl House. Cassie fell back against the mattress, which squeaked in surprise. She didn't care if she woke anyone. Today was the worst day of the whole year, worse than her birthday, which no one remembered, or Christmas. When she sat alone in the dining hall, picking at dried turkey, while everyone else went home to family and presents and pudding. Today marked 7 years since she'd come to live at Fowl House, and 7 years since she'd last seen her mother. Cassie tugged at the cord around her neck and fished out her key. The chain had broken years ago, and string was more inconspicuous anyway. Jewellery was another item on the long list of things forbidden at Fowl House. So although she wore the key always, she never let anyone see it. It was no longer than her index finger, and green gold in colour. The bow was shaped like a spiral of a fern frond, unfurling into a straight stem with little leaflets forming the bit at the end. Cassie had many theories about what the key might open. A treasure chest, a secret vault, the door to the home she had and her mother would someday return. Yet it was also a promise and a reminder of the commitment she herself had made. Her mother had given her the key on the day she left, begging Cassie to wait patiently for her, and Cassie had promised she would. At the time, she could never have imagined just how long that would be. Whenever she held a key, she drew on the small well of hope deep inside her heart. But when she searched for it, she found the well as nearly empty. Another year had passed, and she found it harder and harder to believe her mother was ever coming back. Cassie moved through the day in a daze. She walked mechanically down the halls, ignoring the taunts of the hockey team. In class, she sat and gazed out the window, watching 3 jackdaws fight over a biscuit. She spent her free hour curled up behind the gym, plucking at dead grass and staring at the school gates. She didn't even feel like reading. In fact, she was trying very hard not to feel anything at all, to squash down the creeping sense of despair and just get through the day. Cassie would have preferred to have skipped dinner and gone to bed early that night. The sooner the day was over, the better. However, she had detention to get through first. She considered pretending to be ill, but even if she could convince matron, they'd just give her something worse the next day. Perhaps washing pots or pulling weeds or whatever they had in store for her would distract her from her own thoughts. Cassie made her way to the entrance hall, where a queue of 6 girls were already waiting outside Miss Pike's office. When Cassie's turn came, she handed over her pink slip and was given a bucket of soapy water and a toothbrush. "North Wing lavatory cleaning duty," said Miss Pike with a sneer. "Make sure you get in between the grout." The lavatory was empty when Cassie arrived. No one used the North Wing, if they could help it, because the only toilet they flushed did so with a strangled cry like a drowning sheep. She set down the bucket of soapy water, which sloshed onto the dirty green tiles. There was nothing else for it but to get to work. The sooner she finished, the sooner she could crawl into bed, where sleep would erase the last of that awful day. Scrubbing floors is not, generally speaking, a pleasant task. You have to do it on your hands and knees, and the water quickly turns brown and mucky. Scrubbing toilets is worse. Cassie had been on it for an hour or so, and had made a fairly good start on the job when the door creaked open. She looked up from the toilet tiles to see the 3 pairs of boots walking towards her. The boots were attached to legs of 3 members of the hockey team. One of them was Lizzie Bleacher. "Hello, what have we here?" said Lizzie. "Something nasty crawled out of the toilet," the other girl sniggered. Lizzie strode across the floor as if she owned the place. "Oh, you missed a spot," she said, and kicked the bucket of dirty water, spilling its contents across the tiles and soaking Cassie's skirt. All the girls laughed as Cassie got to her feet and tried to wring out the water. Lizzie sneered at her. "Didn't anyone tell you this was my territory?" "I'm doing detention for Mr. Hastings." A fresh smile spread over Lizzie's broad face as she remembered the cause of Cassie's punishment. "Oh, that's right, you're the fairy girl. Found any lewd fairies down there then?" The other The others laughed while Lizzie, evidently pleased with her own wit, went on. Better hold her tight. She might grow wings and fly away. The two girls dragged Cassie to her feet again, gripping one arm each and pinning them behind her. Cassie bit her lip. She would not give them the satisfaction of hearing her cry out, even as her arms were nearly wrenched from the sockets. Lizzie stepped in close, her face hovering above Cassie's own. She had an unpleasant view up the older girl's nostrils and tried to look away, but Lizzie's huge hand reached out and grabbed her by the neck. You thought I'd forgotten you, she growled, sneaking around and hiding in holes like a scared little rabbit. Cassie, who had hoped that might be the case, tried to shake her head, but Lizzie's fingers were cutting into her windpipe, and it was all she could do to draw rasping breaths. Well, maybe I've just been waiting for a good opportunity. An opportunity just like this, she smiled. Nice and quiet down here. No one to bother us. No one to be hearing your squeal. Cassie knew that Lizzie was just trying to scare her. The problem was, it was working. And like a dog, Lizzie could smell the fear of her prey. She let go of Cassie's throat and stood back with a satisfied smirk. Don't suppose anyone would care much if another girl went missing? Lizzie tried to look thoughtful, an expression to which her face was unaccustomed. They'd just say it was kidnappers or whoever it was that took poor little Jane. Cassie was quite sure that Lizzie had nothing to do with the disappearance of Jane Wren. Whatever she might like to insinuate, however, she did not like the direction this conversation was taken. It's not like anyone would miss you, Morgan? Not got any friends, have you? No one to blub when you don't show up for breakfast tomorrow morning? Cassie gritted her teeth. It was mostly Lizzie's fault. She didn't have any friends, and Lizzie knew it. You haven't got a mummy or a daddy either, have you? Poor little orphan. I'm not an orphan, Cassie hissed under her breath. I have a mother. What was that? I didn't hear you. One of the girls gave Cassie a shove from behind, sending her stumbling forward. All the feelings Cassie had been pushing down that day, all hate, anger and frustration, were welling up inside her, a furious tide ready to overflow. I said I have a mother! Lizzie leaned in so close that Cassie could smell her breath. Where is she then? Off with the fairies! The two girls who were holding Cassie roared with laughter. She seized the moment to break free of their grasp. Diving past Lizzie, she made for the door. Cassie was small and nimble, and she might have outrun the bigger, slower hockey players, if she'd not had eyes full of tears, vision too blurry to see the pool of dirty water. She hit the tiles hard, sliding across the soapy floor, until she slammed head first into a cubicle door. She lay there curled up on the floor, smarting from bruised elbows and knees, her head ringing. You're not going anywhere, not until I'm finished with you. Lizzie crouched down in front of her. You're done for, Morgan. She raised a fist. And there's no fairy godmother coming to save you. The lavatory door creaked open again. All four girls turned to see pale beige shape of Miss Pike standing in the doorway. The teacher examined the scene before her, taking in the three older girls, looming over the small, crumpled form of Cassandra Morgan. Miss Bleacher, girls, the dinner bell rang 5 minutes ago. I suggest you make your way to the dining hall if you wish to eat tonight. Yes, Miss Pike. They chorused and headed for the door, Lizzie glaring at Cassie over her shoulder. Once the older girls had left, Miss Pike entered the room, her heels clicking on the tiles as she navigated her way round the puddle. "Miss Morgan, when I sent you to clean the lavatory, this is not what I had in mind." Cassie pulled herself up from the floor. Her head was aching. "And what have you done to your uniform? You look as though you've been dragged through half the gutters of London. Still, you haven't got time to change. We can't keep her waiting. Up you get. Follow me." They were halfway down the hall before Cassie had a chance to ask where they were going. "Did I not already tell you? The headmistress wants to see you." Next time, we'll be reading Chapter 4, The Garm.
Time for bloopers.
On Monday morning, Cassie woke with a stick feeling. Stripped by iron bars. The 5 other girls she shared the room with were still asleep. Beatrice Hatry. "I'm doing detention for Miss Hastings." Slowly hockey players. Sliding across the slopey floor. Slopey? Booper.
Booper.
Sliding across the slopey. Soapy.